And we're live. How are y'all doing today?
You don't know how he treats me behind the scenes, you guys. It kind of reminds me of like my mom, that she was like, go to your room. Go. I swear I'm going to. Hello.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I'll totally bring a casserole.
Yeah. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode three of Top to Bottom. I am your host, Keenan. I am here with our other host, Becc. Becc, did your mom send you to your room a lot?
I'm Becc, and she did, Keenan. She really, really did. That's where I fell in love with books, was my room.
All right, men, what's our day look like today?
I'm glad you asked, Keenan. We are going straight into our first segment, which is email teardown. This is the segment where we tear down emails that were sent to Becc and Keenan. Okay. The first email, let me bring it up. Perfect.
I bet our viewers love this because these are real emails.
So our first email is subjected, need a hand with customer support, Keenan. Hi, Keenan. Not sure if this is relevant for you or not, but I'm curious if you're pleased with the support experience your customers are getting. If not, I'm confident we can help. We recruit, vet, hire, and lead teams of people that provide customer support to our clients' customers. If you're all set, please disregard. If not, feel free to reply. Best, blank.
Look,
Keenan, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, if you write an email, okay, everybody paying attention, that starts with, not sure if this is relevant, stop writing. Stop writing. Right there. Stop. That's your telltale sign. Stop writing. It's almost be like, I'm not sure if you're a male or female, or I'm not sure if you live in the United States, or I'm not sure if you like ice cream. Shut up. Shut up and go away. Okay, that's the first one. Okay, the second one is know who you're writing to, right? I don't have a customer support team. I don't have a customer success team. So guess what? It's not relevant. I don't have it. And even if I did, the last piece I would say here is you need to dig into the problems that I might have if I actually did, and get me to think about those problems and ask me if this is something you'd like to solve. But tell me you vet people and all this shit you do, that's an F. We need that's an F email because one, it lacked relevance. Two, you didn't understand who you're sending to. And three, even if it did have relevance, you offered no value to reading it.
All right, perfect. Now, Becc, I know that we have some revisions that you would like to talk about.
Yeah, so I wanted to turn this into that I give kind of 3 high-level revisions to the email. So I agree with everything that Keenan said. I think the 2 things that were done well, I'm going to start there. The 2 things that were done well is it's a brief email, and aesthetically, which I don't see often, and aesthetically, they use punctuation in the words in a way that I kept reading, So I think that that's the good part of this email, full disclosure. Now, the things that I didn't like about this email, and they're all circled essentially above, but the first one about I'm curious if you're happy, essentially if you're satisfied with your customer support. Not only is that a self-diagnosis question of like Keenan would have to assess himself whether he's happy or not, but the second piece being there, that's a leading question. So it's kind of like saying like, I'm curious if you're going to eat that sandwich or not. People would know beforehand of like, hey, well, that's because I want to eat your sandwich. So that's my first correction. The second correction would be they say that if you're not happy, then I'm confident that we can help. So there's 2 things in there. Number one, if you don't even know if this is relevant, how on earth are you confident that you can help? Like, you don't know any of the details of my business. And I see a lot of people, say this and they think that it's a marker of confidence, or it will infuse confidence in their prospect if they say they're confident, but your prospect needs to know that you know things like essentially about their business. And then the last piece here, I can't even read it essentially. What's the last piece, man, that I circled?
If not, feel free to reply, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So from an egocentric perspective, if you say feel free to reply, you should only say feel free or command someone to do something if they're the clear benefactor of it. If I'm like, feel free to get the cookies in my fridge, or feel free to take my money. But in this situation, it puts them in the authority chair, and Keenan is the reader in the submissive chair of like, feel free to contact me if you want to buy my stuff.
For sure. Now let's quickly go into the next email, and this one was sent over to Becc via LinkedIn. It says, question for Becc. Hey Becc, we researched your company Groundswell and thought our commission-only GSS appointment system could get you an extra 10 to 30K monthly. It's a commission-based system that works purely on a commission basis, so there's literally no risk involved. I guarantee you have never seen something like this before, and I would love to chat. Are you open to seeing if you qualify for the system/commission-only aspect? We started with Keenan last. Becc, go ahead. Tell us what you think.
Well, I got 14 seconds left, and I'll say this. This person says that they researched me, and that has to be a lie because I don't work at Groundswell.
There we go. Oh, hold on. We have one more. All right, perfect. Now it is time to get into our next segment, which is
Sales Mythology.
This is the segment where we demystify common myths within the sales industry. The first myth I would like to talk about is Bant is good for qualifying prospects. Becc, why don't you go first?
I want to let Keenan lead with this one.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Keenan, tell us what you think.
Okay. Those who know me and know ASG and have read Gap Selling, they know what I think. Those who don't, this might be a punch in the nose. Bant is the most pathetic qualifying process ever created by man in a selling environment. It is self-serving. It is self-absorbed. It provides zero value for your buyer. And using some of Beck's words, it's egocentric. It puts you in the wrong state. It's condescending. Do you have enough budget for this? Are you the decision maker? Come on, stop. Like when you Bant me, I'm going to lay you out. It's like, I don't have time for you. Move on. Bant has no value to the buyer whatsoever, and it only is buyer to you as a salesperson or you as your sales organization. And what I have told people over and over, you don't matter in a sales environment, and Bant is why the sales culture is a shit show. Sales culture is a shit show because of self-centered, self-absorbed sales organizations who only care about closing a deal, making quota, and achieving their numbers.
Okay, now Becc, what do you think about Bant?
Yeah, so I think, let me take a step back. When people see Bant, they see some kind of qualification framework to uncover whether their buyer is ready to buy. So it comes from a good place if they want to see if this person has quote unquote buyer intent. When I look at Bant, I see a misunderstanding of the reasons that people buy and how people process a purchase to begin with. So Bant was created by IBM back in the day, good old IBM, got little history here. But it was created by IBM as a framework to understand, like, is this person buyer ready? And they wanted to consider a number of things. Do they have budget? Do they have, some level of decision-making power? Do they have a need? And do they have timeline? Let's throw out the easy pieces of the budget and the authority.
Remember why they came up with it, Becc. Remember why they came up with it.
They wanted to increase basically sellers obtaining that knowledge to increase their sales conversion.
But why? They had too much business.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
that's
they wanted
the key piece. They were qualifying people out. They weren't qualifying them in. They were calling them out.
Right. And like if I was selling water and I'm in the desert and there's 3,000 people, mobbing me, I would have the same, mindset. So I don't think it was created with malevolent intent. But how it's used today, specifically with inbound demo requests, is really deleterious to organizations. So the piece that I have the most problem with, I think, from the psychological level is the need. Because it's a seller rushing in, going to see if this person thinks they need something, which is they have self-diagnosed their condition, which they might be right or wrong. Statistically, they're usually going to be wrong. And they also have self-prescribed what they think will solve the condition that they have. And if you're only after acquiring that information, then you are like essentially asking your buyer to self-prescribe the wrong thing and not be after any of the context or problems that they don't know about within the room. So as an infrastructure, I think that it's the manner that it's used is specifically damaging organizations.
I think that's a perfect transition into our next myth, which is I should sell prospects what they say they need. Becc, would you like to start us up on this?
I think I just did. Keenan, go ahead. You start and I'll follow.
Yeah, look, when we talk about Bant, right, and I say all the time, when people say, well, what if they don't have budget? And what if they're not the right person to talk to? And what if I don't know the need? And timing is important. I'm like, yeah, all of that stuff is driven by the problem. Like if we had more time, I could walk you through how every little piece of Bant is influenced by the problem and the size of the problem. So as it relates to need, customers often don't understand what they need, or they have a very high level understanding of what they think they need. And if you start responding to that right away, you're in trouble. One of the greatest examples of that is most of the time buyers think they need the product or the tool. Mm-hmm. And it's not the product or tool they need, it's an outcome that they need, and it's a problem that's driving that outcome or the lack of desired outcome. And so therefore they can buy things that don't actually deliver on the outcome. I say every single day, nobody buys a tool. They're not buying the pen, they're not buying the mouse, they're not buying the car, they're not buying the fucking remote control. They're buying what those things enable. And if salespeople are not careful, they will sell the mouse and that mouse is not going to deliver on what they're trying to enable or what their outcome is. And in my book, I talk about the Palm Pilot. I went in saying I need a charger. What I really needed was a new case, and I won't go into that because we don't have the time. And I ended up spending twice as much money, and I was twice as happy because the charger would have not solved the problem, and therefore I would have continued to have the same negative outcome. Mm-hmm. So no, don't sell to need ever.
Yeah. So I have a couple pieces here, but the first is, so I went into basically a couple different doctor's appointments to ask doctors questions about how they ask questions. And one of the doctors led with, well, what's wrong? What's, wrong with you? And I'm like, well, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time, but I do have some questions. And I asked them essentially, hey, when people come into you, how often is it pain-based? And they said, oh, it's usually going to be 98% of the time. I said, interesting. So how many people have self-diagnosed when they come into your office as a patient? They're like, thanks to WebMD, 95% of the time. And I said, and how often are they incorrect with their self-diagnosis? And he said, can I be candid? About 90. About 90% of the time, they thought based on their knowledge that they had the wrong condition than what they truly had. And our buyers are no different. And essentially a lot to their credit, it's not their job to be an expert in their problem. It's yours.
Yep.
It's yours as the seller. So maybe if people could jump in the chat. I know that we're live and we, have a lot of people in the chat. I want y'all to jump in the chat and give me from a scale of 1 to 10. Keep in mind, I can't see the comments. And a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you say that your products, all of your products, all of the value props that they have, all of the people that you sell to, all of the ins and outs, all of the features, all of the benefits for your own products? Do we have any numbers in there, Keenan? Can you see them or no?
It's a little delayed, so it'll come in a second. But what we do, well, I'll keep my eye open. But to your point and where you're going with this, Becc, we do an exercise in gap selling training where we ask people to pick something they bought, right? Like a car, a house, whatever. We tell them almost anything, right? And then we ask them to list their current state problems, physical and literal problem, impact, emotion, root cause. And then we ask them to list their future state, right? Desired outcomes, etc. And then we ask them, it is amazing how much each one of those people really had no idea, at least conscious understanding of their current state before they bought. Like we'd ask about a house, right? And I'd be like, well, what's your current state, physical and literal? I had a house. It was too far from work. And I'd be like, well, how far from it was work? Well, it was this far. I said, how many bedrooms did it have? Oh, it had 4. How many bathrooms? Only 1. And like, oh, did that one bathroom play a role? Yes. Well, you didn't say that. Well, I guess that's a good point. We didn't think about that. Like, it literally proves out how little people understand their own buying process. It's crazy.
Totally. Even their own buying process, but usually even their own products. When I usually run this exercise, do we have any comments back?
Yes, we have 4, 6.5 out of 10, 7, 8, 8 to 9, 7, 9 out of 12. I don't even know where to go with that, man. Okay. 7, etc.
Yeah, so usually you're going to have anywhere from around a 4 to a 7. Then I ask people, hey, okay, let's transition for a second. How much do you think that you're on a scale of 1 to 10 that your current customers know your product? And they'll spike down. They'll usually say around a 2 or a 3. I'm like, cool, let's transition for a second. How much do you think on a scale of 1 to 10 people who have heard of you but haven't bought know your products? And they'll say like a 1. And I'm like, now let's talk about people who have never heard of you. How much do they know your products? And they're like 0.25 or a 0. I'm like, cool. So when you're asking someone to self-prescribe and you're going off of their need, you're going off of someone's intellect and acumen towards a product that they know, on the best case scenario, a 1 out of 10 of all the products that you offer to help with that problem.
You know what's funny, Becc, is I use this in the training. I literally say, you got a carrier company who's the best at getting something from LA to Boston, and no one can do it better. And then they are unaware of flight. And they're still like, oh, no one can do it better. You say, well, what about flight? Whoa, what's flight? And they have no idea. So, yes.
Keenan hit the cardinal sin, and he ran over.
It's okay. It's okay. It's only a couple seconds. But, hey, we are now going to transition into our next segment, which is
Take it or leave it.
This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Becc and Keenan let us know whether or not they will take it or leave it. The first one is automated mail sequences. Becc, take it or leave it?
Leave it. Unless you're B2C, leave it. There needs to be some degree of research and some degree of personalization. Unless you're B2C, or you're brand new to market and you're the bottle of water in the desert and everyone needs it and it's essentially just about volume at that point, I would say by and large, leave it.
What about you, Keenan? Automated mail sequences.
If it's totally automated, leave it. If it's intermixed, I'll take it. So I'm making up numbers, 50, 50, 60, doesn't really matter. I'll take some combination of automated versus personalized anonymous. So just depends on how you're defining it. All automated, leave it, 100%. Yeah.
Got you. The next one is leaving this voicemail. Hi, I'm Becc. Call me back. Keenan, what do you think?
Leave it. It's manipulative. 100%. You want to watch me lose my shit more than Bant is try to be manipulative. It fucking drives me insane. I have gone on the record and saying the culture is broken, and the rest of my career I am going to try to fix the sales culture, and that type of shit is what pisses people off. It's manipulative. Cut it out.
What about you, Becc? Take it or leave it?
Yeah, I think I'll leave it as well. I'm on the same train of thought as Keenan. And I've seen a lot of people say and I had a rep that essentially left these messages, and he was known as like the king of callbacks because everyone called him back. And I'm like, well, what are you saying on the voicemail? And then he played it for me, and he was like, let's say his name was Ben. He's like, this is Ben. Call me back. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you a question, Ben. Are you getting any booked meetings? And he's like, no, people rush off the phone whenever they call me back. And it's like, because they thought you were somebody else. They thought you were like someone really important or someone in their kids in the hospital or something. And when it was a false premise, they didn't trust you. So I'm I stand with Keenan on his side of like, if it's manipulative, you're getting the call back for the wrong reason. So leave it.
Okay. The next one is AI replacing salespeople. Becc, take it or leave it?
Salespeople, it would never leave it. For sales development, by and large, how it's done today, I would say take it. You're sending automated emails without an actual person, unless it's cold calls. Cold calls you'll never be able to automate. But by and large, I see a lot of the community, advocate for 95%, automated emails that I don't need a human being for. So can AI replace sales development? In a lot of cases, it can, unless you're personalizing it for email specifically. So it's a T-bit, right down the middle.
What about you, Keenan? Take it or leave it.
I'm taking it in the long term. I agree you'll never be able to, okay. In our lifetime, you'll never be able to replace salespeople. Okay, so, but on the front end and even in cold calls where I know Becc differs, I am taking it all day. And what changed my opinion is, now, I don't know when. This is the key piece. You didn't put a time frame on here. So I'm just going infinitely. I read the interview with the Google Sentinel AI that he had with the engineers. After reading that, you bet your fucking ass we'll be able to do it on the front end, even on a cold call. Yes, 100%. Now, whether we choose to allow something to be that sentinel and try to put it in sales is a different story. But yes, I'm taking it 100%.
All right, perfect. Well, our last one is sales role plays. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Look, I love sales role play. I am huge on sales role plays. And besides changing the culture of sales, the other platform I'm jumping on is the power of the data you get in a discovery as the key motivator and driver to closing the deal. Not enough emphasis is focused on the data. Role play I'm taking 100% because it allows you to hone that skill of getting the data from the buyer that's going to increase the probability of close.
Now, Becc, sales role plays, take it or leave it.
I'm a T-bit again. I mean, how I've seen them done, it's usually very canned, and it's not based on the information or the seller or SDR being aggressive about finding out information about the person. That's my main reason that I would leave it. Is it's not
they execute poorly.
Yeah, it's not based on the info you get from the
No, every single time.
I agree, Becc.
My chair is gonna get like shocked.
I agree, Becc. That was a good point.
Maybe that's the next installment for our next podcast. We'll install electric chairs into both of y'all.
Like, y'all, I'm not brief, okay? There's my vulnerability for the year.
Well, it's time to get on to our next segment, which is
the inbox.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan answer questions from our audience. We shall be taking letters from our trusty mailbox. Let's see what the first question is today.
I love that mail comes in a mailbox. See, I mean, it's so old school.
Very Mr. Rogers.
I love it.
The first one is from Kevin Tran from Austin, Texas. He asks, how can I send out email sequences to my list of contacts while keeping the relevance and not sounding like a gimmicky mass email? Becc, would you like to go first?
I'm going to let Keenan go first.
No, you've done that twice today. You don't get that card anymore.
I know, but it makes me less nervous when you go.
That's okay. I noticed that. Go.
So I kind of have a problem with the question. Is you're saying, how do I make a mass email not sound gimmicky and like a mass email? And I'm like, well, you don't write a mass email. Mm-hmm. Right? So I would imagine, and I'm not going to blow him up at all, but I would imagine that the email that I got earlier, if I've researched you, you and your company at Groundswell, like it started from a good place. They know that personalization's great, but they don't want to take the time to do it. So they want to trick their buyer into feeling like they care. And I'd say you just need to care and like actually focus on them. So from it, there's a number of different ways that you can do it. From a pattern interrupt perspective, I'd suggest just making a list of all the words that people say. You have to stay out of those words, just following up, checking in, circling back, et cetera, and that should help. I've also seen gimmicks of like jokes and da-da-da. It's not my style. I don't like that because then you're joke guy, but I'd say from a high level, I wouldn't try to trick my buyers and send them a mass email and trick them into thinking that it wasn't a mass email because it was.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Keenan? What do you think about this?
So I like what Becc had to say. So what I would do is, look, back to, I'm not a huge fan of huge mass emails, but I get the scale piece, right? And we're still playing around with that here. But I think one of the things I might do, and I want to test here is more so, is I would start off with the mass email sequence starting with no ask, but actually being so educational give, where it's like, we know the problems we solve, right? So lead with one of the problems. So if we were here, we were talking about losing to the status quo. I might lead this concept with, do you know why 80% of most people lose to the status quo? It's for this reason. If you're struggling with this like most, check this out. I think it might help. I build that into something that I can see who clicks on that. And from those who clicked on that, I would move to another educational or type of piece. And then from there, I would start asking for the close. I have the ask in the second or third email. So this gives me the scale that I'm looking for, but it also gives me a way to start letting people unconsciously self-select into this could be a problem they're having, and I'll bring them down that funnel and see if I can go there, and then I'd call them.
I do have one thing to add. That's a good point. I do have one thing to add because I didn't want to leave Kevin with no value. There are three pieces to relevance. Relevance according to their metrics, relevance according to the problems that they typically run into as a buyer, and relevance according to their triggers, their movement and market according to you, et cetera. But those are the three pieces I would break relevance down to. But I agree with everything Keenan says.
And what this is a good one too, because what Becc just said is relevance to a problem can be one to many, can be masked.
Right.
And that does that really well. It is infomercials. They do that fucking brilliantly.
Yes.
Like, they literally start with the problem to keep people watching to the end of the show.
Yes.
So it can be done. You just got to get good at understanding the problem.
Yes.
Okay, we have just a little bit of time for our next question. Let's get through it as quick as we can. This one's from Devontae Williams from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm currently a sales director for a medtech startup here in Atlanta. We usually hire AEs from within, usually SDRs, but I find that a majority of our SDRs have a difficult transition into becoming an AE, and it's affecting our ability to hit quota. How can I help my SDRs prepare to become AEs, or should I just transition strategies and hire for AEs externally?
Devontae, great question. Two things I'm noticing here, and then I'll let Becc finish. One, you're not recognizing that you need to be hiring for the AE as the BDR. So you're probably not hiring the right skill sets when you hire the BDR. Number two, there's something going on in your existing training process or coaching process or development process that actually gets them ready to be an AE. So it's either how you're training them or it's how you're hiring.
Devontae, I'll answer you next time because we're up on time.
For sure, exactly. All right, for sure. Our next segment is called
The Challenge.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. Okay, so today's challenge is how should sales leaders develop compensation plans? Becc, would you like to start us off?
Keenan has to start. I had to start.
No, he asked you. You got to go. You can't. You already blew that card. You can only defer a card once.
I think I'm going to start with this, and I want to get Keenan's thoughts. I think the reason that it's a challenge is because, by and large, people are putting in comp systems that are best in practice, but it's causing results that they don't want. So a great example of this is comping and KPI marketing on MQLs, and that means anyone who downloads a piece of content, regardless of if they're already a customer, regardless of if it's an intern, regardless of if it's a Gmail, regardless if they're outside of buyer persona, and so marketing has this number, and then they're cheering, and they're like, this is awesome, but then sales dev gets the list, and they're like somewhat crying because 75% of them, they don't actually want to book a meeting with. So there's the first hinge. But I think the reason it's a challenge, and I'm going to kick it over to Keenan and I can take it back with what to do about it, is that people are putting in best in practice old parochial systems because it's always how it's been done, booked meetings, qualified meetings that the AE says is qualified, and it's not causing the actual results that they need and want from a funnel perspective. Keenan, what do you think?
So I agree. I agree. I'm going to summarize what she said. Your comp plans don't align with the desired outcomes, right? So that's, I agree with Becc 100% there. The second thing I'm seeing is, and it sometimes is more prevalent with larger companies, is they start building these comp plans playing to the negative forces inside the organization. They build comp plans that quote unquote shouldn't be gamed or they don't want gamed. Anytime you start creating laws or commission structures or whatever that default to the lowest common denominator, you're in trouble. Because all those people that play by the rules are actually negatively affected. So if you literally feel you have to build a comp plan because you figure what happens if they hold it an extra day and they get all this extra, then you might want to take a look at your corporate culture. So don't try to create comp plans to address assholes. How about not let assholes get inside the organization or address it when people see people do that? So I think those are the two. Is you got to stop building comp plans to fight against being gamed and all that. Assume the organization is all full of good people and build one that aligns with the outcomes you want.
Yeah. A great example of this that I was thinking about when you were talking is I see SDR teams in specific that inbound reps and outbound reps will be measured based off of booked meetings. And it sounds good in theory because overall in the organization, they're like, I need this amount of meetings. But you have to break it down to, from my perspective, a comp plan or a KPI system should effectively measure two things. Efficacy within the role, how effective were they? And then how hard did they work? Both of those. So if I'm an inbound SDR, and this was probably the number one thing that I thought about as an SDR leader, is I worked for a company that was based in Germany and had a whole bunch of other geos. Lots of marketing efforts going on in Germany, and all the inbound leads were kicked outbound. So the EMEA team was killing it via booked meetings because a ton of demo requests came in for the EMEA crowd because they were doing all their marketing there. So on paper, they had like 15, 20 meetings per month. But then the US team and the APAC team essentially had only booked like 5 or 6 meetings a month. So on paper, that would tell you EMEA's better at the role than APAC or US. But what was really the difference is the US team and the APAC team had to go outbound for all of their meetings, which is much more tough, takes a lot more skill and difficulty than just booking a meeting with someone who came inbound. So I saw a huge gap and war between the teams because they're like, this, EMEA-centric team, like there's no skill level to that. And it caused not only tension, but like a resentment. Yeah, totally. And it was toxic to the organization. Another example of this, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Keenan, is SDRs passing over meetings, to the AE, and then the AE determines whether it's qualified or not based on, a la need, budget, authority, etc. And then they decline a certain percentage, which for the SDR, especially on outbound, that means that they don't get paid for the meeting because the AE has the crown and the scepter. So what are your thoughts on that KPI?
I don't like paying AEs on activity and meetings booked. I believe you should pay AEs the same way you pay sales reps. Close deals.
Oh, you mean SDRs, essentially.
What did I say?
AEs.
Sorry. I don't like paying BDRs and SDRs on meetings booked. I think you should pay them on close one. Now, I am open to paying them on opportunity created and then close one. So if I'm going to make this up, but let's say 50-50. So if we open an opportunity and that opportunity is worth, $10,000, and you give them 1% or something, or you give them 5%, they get 50 or $100 or whatever for every opportunity that's created based on the pipeline amount was put in. But 90% of their should come down to, did the deal close? And if the deal closed, they get their 10% or 3% or whatever it is, just like, not the same percentage amount, but like an AE. Because at the end of the day, what that really does is that drives them to do the best job they can do to get that rep, number one, as many opportunities as possible, but two, opportunities that aren't going to waste their time. They're literally incented not to just throw everything over the fence. They're incented to get really good shit, but they're also incented to get as much good shit as possible
Mm-hmm.
because they don't get paid till they get to the end. That benefits everybody.
So what do you do with, and then I'll kind of give a solve that I've done in the past, but what do you do with, an AE is usually metriced on conversion from initial opportunity into closed one. And so what I've seen a lot of account executives do is they basically hold off the opportunity, don't convert it, don't convert it, don't convert it, don't convert it until right before it's about to close so they can falsely spike up the conversion percentage and look like king or queen of the universe. So they have an inherent desire or agenda to decline appointments that are coming from a valid opportunity. And it's usually on like qualitative stuff, like was there need or was there buyer intent? Because if they say, for instance, if you're the SDR, Keenan, and I'm the AE, and you pass me 10 appointments, and out of those 10 appointments, like 7 of them didn't close, but they didn't close because I didn't sell them effectively. I didn't hunt for the right problems. I held a bad conversation in the room, but I don't want to take that hit as an AE. So I basically have an inherent bias to say they weren't qualified so that I don't take the hit from a conversion percentage that the math doesn't point to. I couldn't sell them. So what do you do?
Listen. If you're saying someone's willing to meet with you and you're not taking the meeting, is that what you're saying?
They'll take the meeting, but they say on the back end, this wasn't qualified as an opportunity.
This is a management issue. That's not a rep issue. Because you should have, it's 2022, you should have some type of, what's it called? Gong or chorus or pickle or something like that embedded in your organization. If you have SDRs and you have that much front end work, then you absolutely have some type of Zoom, you have some type of recording, and management needs to be evaluating the calls. If you have an organization right now that has BDRs and SDRs and passing it on, and then you have conversion rates from first meeting to second meeting and all that, and you have no observable moments, that is a cultural issue, and that is an organizational issue. That is not an AE issue. Because that shit, you should be able to go in and be like, hey, AE, you did 3 of these, and this is screwed up. What do you mean? What? You didn't do this, and this. So no, that's not an AE issue. And I'll go back to someone asked here, SDL kills it, and Ray blows it, don't punish the SDR.
Totally.
Listen,
that's what happens.
Yes, but this look, again, that is a leadership issue, okay? Because this is at a macro level. But SDR brings X amount of deals to the table, right? You and that organization should see if that sales rep's conversion rate is lower than everybody else's, and that should be evaluated and addressed in the coaching as you go along. You're not punishing the SDR. You're not doing your job as management because you're not watching the AER as much as you're watching the SDR.
So I do have a solve. We have 15 seconds. One thing that I did is I separated the metric of what means the SDR gets comped and what the AE takes into pipeline. What the SDR is comped on is over criteria, title, company size, whatever, something they could call beforehand. And then if the AE takes it into pipeline, meaning they have a second meeting and it becomes an opportunity, but they're 2 different numbers, 2 different terms. Men, we're up on time. Speaking of comp systems.
I know.
And I disagree, by the way. Too many people say this. Someone here said, Nick, Famagetti, I don't know if I got it right. Basically said, no matter what, reps will always game the system. It depends on how you define game the system. But if it's very simple and very straightforward, there's nothing to game. It gets gamed when it gets really funky, right? But it's just simple, sell your shit, get paid. There's nothing to game.
All right, perfect. Well, now we're going to transition into our last segment, which is the rant. This is the segment where Becc and Keenan give us your closing thoughts. Becc, would you like to start us? Oh, Keenan, would you like to start us off?
I don't have a problem with this rant. Look, here's my rant today. I'm doing a lot of interviewing for a role here. I have a couple roles open. And my rant is this. I don't understand how people go through life without a commitment to their career. I don't get it. No one forced you to be a salesperson. No one forced you to be an personal assistant. No one forced you to be an software developer. No one forced you to be a cook. No one forced you to be a waiter. No one forced you to be a doctor. No one forced you to be a goddamn pharmacist. You chose that. So if you're going to choose a career, then you need to choose that you want to be the best damn one of those you could ever be. And you better understand where you want to take that in your career. And you better understand how you're defining being the best. And you better be able to explain to somebody what you're doing to this and explain to people how you've grown over the last 2, 3, 5, 7, 9 years, where you try to take it, what your motivation for it is, what you get out of it, why you enjoy it. Because if you're not, all I see is someone who's going through the fucking motions to get a paycheck. And I ain't got time for that. When I'm giving you a salary, I'm betting on the fact that you love what you do and you're going to try to make a difference in my organization. If you look me in the eye and you can't fucking tell me that, then why are you on this call? Not enough people in our society take their lives seriously, nor do they take their fucking careers seriously. And even though I'm yelling deep down inside, I think it's sad. I think it's terribly, terribly sad that that's where you are in life. And too many people are there. And that's why politicians take advantage of us, because we're unhappy. Do it and make yourself happy. Rant over.
All right, Becc, what is your rant for today?
I think my rant is I want to double back to something that was asked earlier of like, how do I stop being gimmicky? How do I not sound gimmicky? And it comes from a good place. Like gimmicky, feeling gimmicky isn't fun. And I almost, true story, left sales because I didn't feel gimmicky, but I felt manipulative to some degree of bending people's opinion. And I'm here today to say that what changed for me is there's an option, but it's going to take a complete shift in your mindset of how you're selling. I have a sister, she's a doctor, and I actually asked her, do you ever feel like you're asking questions in a certain way to try to get someone to admit? She was like, no. She stopped me before I even finished the question. She was like, my job is to find what is going on in their body quickly and effectively to help them. And I feel like if we're asking the question of how do I not sound gimmicky or how do I not come off as gimmicky, then the problem deep down is the role in your mind is to convince someone. And that needs to shift to it's to help someone by finding out information about them to be able to plug the gaps for them that will help them get to the next stage. So my rant is how you get over feeling gimmicky and how we can pivot sales in general is be after the things that will help them.
So your rant is tell them, come on, give me a rant. Tell them to stop being manipulative. Just say it. Come on, Becc.
But I don't think they're the problem because they're sending in questions like this of like, hey, how do I not feel manipulative? They want the right things.
Some do. Some do.
They want the right things, and the option's there. That's my rant.
Well, thank you so much, both of y'all, for joining this podcast.
All right, Min, thank you very much. I'm Keenan, your host of Top to Bottom. And I'm
back.
Until next time.
Until next time.